It is 27 degrees Celsius here in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory. Good morning and welcome to your daily dose of sunshine, Sunrise Daily. I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf.
Indeed, your daily dose of sunshine and 27 degrees here in Lagos as well. And today, just in case you don't remember, is the 10th day in the month of December 2025. How many days to Christmas? Well, do the math. Again, welcome to the show.
Well, Ayo, one of the ways that people are beginning to sense that Christmas is around the corner for those who intend to travel this season is from the airfares, because we know that a lot of Nigerians now are ditching the roads and a lot more people are planning to travel by air. But it does appear that the fares keep climbing into the air, making it unreachable for a lot of Nigerians to be able to get a hold of them. And I think that the Senate has now shown and expressed concern about this constant hike in airfares, which is getting out of the reach of Nigerians. I think that is a discussion that we certainly can go into at some point in time. But there are a number of things, and you can let us know, viewers, just how you intend to deal with that, what your concerns also are, and whether or not you think that this is something that the Senate might be able to successfully wade into, because now they have invited the Minister of Aviation to wade into this matter and also question him as well, because they said the federal government has granted a number of concessions to the local airlines, which should make it easier for them to be able to give further concessions to Nigeria, particularly in this season. But while we're taking a look at that, there are a number of issues that have also come up. That wasn't the only matter the Senate looked into yesterday. They also approved our troops to be able to move into Benin Republic, to be able to deploy for President Bola Tinubu, to be able to deploy troops into Benin Republic to ensure the stability of that country, of our neighboring country. Some of the senators raised the motion. I think it was Senator Seriake Dixon who raised the motion saying that, look, we should have debated this. Don't you think we should have debated it? But, the senator said, look, you're raising this after we've already voted on the matter. And it would seem that the vote was unanimous, so there was no need for a debate. So we're just going to jump right into it, that particular matter, as well as local politics, because we also saw the defection of the governor of Rivers State, Fubara, who has now defected into the All Progressives Congress, saying that his former party, the People's Democratic Party, did not grant him protection when he went through his travels. Now, there were questions as to, is he doing this of his own accord? Is this within a grand plan of what is happening with this erstwhile godfather? Is this an indication of a division? Is this an indication of a solidification? Is unclear. Delving into, and not to take too much time, we have joining us this morning all the way from Rivers State, Richard Wokocha, who is a professor of public law, and he joins us virtually. Good morning, Prof. It's good to see you. Quite a number of things for us to delve into. Is it too early to say compliments of the season to you? Because the Christmas decor is already going up everywhere. Has it gotten to Port Harcourt yet?
Yes, it has. It has. You are on time. Compliment of the season to you too, and all Nigerians.
The question now will be, what season precisely? Because the political season clearly is not abating, especially in Rivers State. So we're wondering, what is the political season feeling like right now?
Well, I think it's going to feel a lot more ceremonial because there are different kinds of celebrations going along with it from different directions, as you have seen politically. So I think it's going to be an active season for politicians.
Indeed. Well, we already saw yesterday the official declaration of the governor of Rivers State. He's been largely quiet in recent times, but yesterday we saw him openly tell his followers, I think in Government House there, that they are now defecting to the All Progressives Congress. As a matter of fact, let me not say how he said it. Let us just hear him say it. So I think we should play this for our viewers so they can see how it transpired and how he spoke, whether even the manner in which he spoke conveyed a different message. Take a listen.
I was with Mr. President yesterday to brief him on the situation of things in our state, which I believe he has taken note and is going to act swiftly on it. But the most interesting part of the meeting is that what you all have been waiting for, what you've been asking me, the signal has finally arrived. I will only thank you to Mr. President is to support it. And we cannot support Mr. President in isolation. And we can't support Mr. President if we don't fully identify with him, not backyard support. So we have taken that decision today since we've gotten a pass. Everyone here who have followed me, who have suffered with me, our decision today, this evening, we are moving to APC.
Message was given yesterday. What I noticed in terms of all that he said was that there was not a mention of the current minister of the FCT. As a matter of fact, some people are saying, is this done outside of him? Is this done with him? Is this because he said, look, I spoke with Mr. President. He spoke to him about the condition of things in our state, what we've been waiting for. The signal has finally come. He says, this is our thank you to Mr. President. We cannot support him in isolation. It's not backyard support. And this is for those who have followed me, suffered with me. You know, very deep words, it will seem. What's your reading of this?
Well, I think they sound very personal. The words suggest personal decisions. And again, remember we are talking about politics, and individuals take their decisions and respect the decision of others. So I think, remember that the minister is still in the PDP, so it will be somewhat inappropriate, even if that is the arrangement, it will be somewhat inappropriate for him to drag in the minister who has not said, I have moved from PDP to APC. So I think he spoke for himself and his followers. In the same manner, the assembly members who recently redefected also spoke for themselves. So it's politics, and you have to express individual decision. My thinking is that he chose his words to indicate or signify his personal decision and for him and his followers, respecting the fact that other people whom he probably should have been expected to mention are presently in another party at the moment.
Indeed. Well, if you reflect back, one of the things that we noticed when the president declared a state of emergency, some people initially had partially blamed, or will I say wholly blamed, the minister of the FCT. Whom we later on heard from was totally unhappy about that declaration, because it would seem that he wanted an outright impeachment. And he said as much in subsequent interviews when he was asked. You know, he said that what he would have preferred, or what they were working towards, and it was seen that they already had all their ducks in a row, was an impeachment. And before the president came with this idea of a state of emergency. So when the governor speaks of a thank you to Mr. President, And you have said that this is a personal decision given the words that he has now used. Does it suggest to you that perhaps we could be looking at more than unity? Is this a new division, or is this a new type of alliance, between the current governor of Rivers State and the president at the federal level?
Well, I think we have witnessed a unity that has looked somewhat frosty, but not outrightly unlike unity. I will want to think that at the moment it's an alliance, yes, but we cannot rule out the presence of anybody in that alliance, including the FCT minister. But we need to walk by the words that have been used. At the moment, what it implies is that for him and for his house, they have decided to embrace the president by joining the president's party. I think probably when the FCT minister or other members of the government who have not done so, when they do so, it's very likely, it's very possible that we will see them talking in the same terms. But I want to think this should signify a new opportunity for peace and unity in Rivers State, because at the moment, it means that all the units, all the, I don't want to call factions, I don't want to say factions, all the segments of Rivers political theater where we have had all the drama are now aligned to one side and have allegiance to one leader, which is the president. So I want to think that it signifies a coming together, and that we should expect less negative drama as we have seen in the past, now that they are all the FCT minister, yes, may be in PDP, but he's working currently under an APC government. So if the state structure has moved into APC, it should mean that they are together now, because they are under the same leader and cannot be acting, taking different instructions from different directions. Yes, what you observe concerning the drama of the past and the position of the FCT minister, which he expressed on national television a number of times, are quite true. But I want to think that all that is in the past, because they are now under the same leadership and will have to take instruction and advice from that leadership.
All right, we'll see how that plays out in the coming days. But from your own reading, I don't know whether you've had the chance to be able to speak with some political elite in Rivers State. How are they receiving this news? Because we know that for years, even though, well, now we're beginning to see a number of states that had been traditionally PDP, they had taken pride in the fact that, it did not even look like they could ever be APC. For the political elite in that state, how are they receiving this news? What has come to your ear?
The state has been, I always like to distinguish between this state and the regular Western states, where the individuals are highly politically aware and active. Politics in this part of the country has been more of following the leader. And so when you have something like this, what everybody will be looking at, especially the politicians, is what's the need for us as a political unit. So I think there is rejoicing in those under the leadership of the governor, because at least they will have the impression, and they have the impression at the moment, that the governor has aligned properly, and he can no longer be on the receiving end of the powers that be, referring to the central powers. So they are very happy and feel protected by the movement the governor has made.
All right, let me take you to my colleague, Ayo.
Well, thank you, Mawpe. It would seem like, needless to say, it's a known fact that one way or the other, Rivers State is it's a very, very interesting angle that everything has to come to. But another thing that is, a bit bothersome is that of what happened between Nigeria and Benin Republic at the behest of the Beninois government. And a lot of narratives is already going on there. While there are narratives about what is happening in Rivers State, there is a lot of narrative making the rounds about what happened between Nigeria and Benin Republic at the behest of the Beninois government, as I said. And the ECOWAS have also come up with what they call a state of emergency, regional state of emergency. It's about narratives. How do we align it all? Because one of the things that we hear ECOWAS saying is, look, our region, our regional cohesion is disintegrating with the Conference of Sahel States coming up, and a number of them, of course, naturally also wanting more and more people to join them. So how do you think the narratives of regional diplomacy can help foster the cohesion or separate us?
We are indeed in some kind of dilemma on what is going on in the region, in the West African region. Using the umbrella word democracy and the need to preserve democracy, you will be tempted to go with the ECOWAS position. But looking at the realities on ground, because the democracy should translate to democratic environment and democratic dividends reaching the people. Now, looking at that dimension, you'll find that to support, you will have to support a Pan-Africanist view. The democracy we have enjoyed in West Africa appears to be a democracy to keep West Africa in the condition in which it is. And that condition is not a condition in the interest of Africans or of West Africans. So if preserving democracy means keeping the resources in West Africa under the control of the West or of foreign interests, and leaving the development of Africa completely unaffected the way it has been for decades now, then indeed, even Africans or West Africans will begin to question the meaning of democracy and why they should remain in democracy. So we are facing a contention of two perspectives, the global perspective, which I do not trust, because down throughout history, democracy and human rights has been used to prosecute more of foreign or Western interests in countries of less political strength or less military strength. And so I do not trust that. On the other camp, the views of ECOWAS and the actions of ECOWAS will be viewed as anti-African and anti-democratic, because those in the other camp are of the opinion that we need to break away the way the Sahel states have done, and our resources should serve us. And our interest should be the well-being of our people and the development of our country, and not aligning with Western propaganda or Western views. So I think it's a dilemma that ECOWAS leaders need to resolve or need to begin to look at, because it will resonate with their people and will possibly affect the stability of their own states. It's not enough that you have a democratic institution. You need to have a democratic society. And that has been completely lacking in the region, in the West African sub-region. So I think ECOWAS leaders may be taking...
Yeah, my apologies. The question then is how? Because at the end of the day, if I understand correctly what you're saying, it's not just about having or knowing that we have a style of government. It's also about ensuring that whatever it is that was intended actually happens exactly as intended. So how do we achieve that? One of the accusations that came in the wake of one of the coups in these Sahel states is that the people were saying, look, we're in a democracy, the regional forces, regional governments are talking, but the dividends of democracy are not reaching the people. That is not something that the regional authorities can legislate. It behoves on the political class in each of the countries to ensure that they do the needful. And, so how do we, is there any role you think ECOWAS or even AU can play in ensuring that governments please their people, give the dividends of democracy to their people through their governance? Prof, I think you may be erroneously muted.
Okay, yes.
Yes, go ahead.
I have muted it, yes. Now, we have had both at AU and ECOWAS a number of policy declarations undertaken by them. But they have not translated to a democratic society, and we have not seen the benefits of those. I think the challenge we have is that the regional administration, the regional governments is a meeting of the governments, the privileged people in government who are running the states that constitute the units, that constitute the regional bodies, and nothing beyond that. And so it's more like an inter-house force where all houses come up and they play their role and play their part. And that has been going on. That's what has promoted the kind of democracy we have had both in the region and the entire Africa, which is lacking in democratic definitions and benefits.
Do you see a place, Prof, for what happens in the EU? I've cited that a couple of times on this program. The European Union is an economic bloc, and it has political influence as well. Everyone in the European Union see it as one.
How are they going to do it?
Well,
I think it lies. That look, there is a need for us to act. The 18. This is going to react. It's possibly.
Can you hear me, Prof?
Okay. Yes, I can hear you.
My apologies.
Yes.
The network was a little glitched a little, so we couldn't hear you for a bit.
Okay.
But just a quick question. Is there a way that you think the African Union or even the ECOWAS can position like the EU? I make that comparison because it is clear, everyone knows, the euro has become as strong as it is now because all of the countries, practicing it, particularly in Europe, they agreed that this is the direction we're all going to go. I don't know whether they have their domestic currencies, but we all know the euro. And we know it is a currency from, that region. So I'm wondering, is there a place you think that the African Union can position like that so that the countries in Africa, more than 50 countries in Africa, can see something to look forward to, see that there is a power block that they have that they can use to the benefit of their people?
Clearly, 55 countries in Africa has meant problem for Africa because it has meant inability of Africa to work as a body. And so long as we remain with 55 currencies, 55 governments, and all of that, we will remain insignificant pieces of what would have been an economic giant. And but you have to accept the reality that those who run Africa from the external sector, the West, does not like this language, what you have just talked about. I think that was one of the major sins of Colonel Gaddafi before he was taken out. And every African leader who has preached that, from Nkrumah, Lumumba, Nkrumah, and the rest of them, every African leader who has preached African unity and Africa forming a strong, becoming a strong force by working together as one entity, utilizing their population and their size and all of that to ensure that Africa can run effective societies. All such leaders have faced backlash from the West. It is the best thing, what you have talked about is the best thing that should happen to Africa. It shouldn't be a difficult thing for us to look at other regional bodies, especially those that have been successful in what they are doing, and try to mirror them. But in doing that, we will have to realize that we are working against very strong forces that will make every attempt to overturn all the governments and maintain the system. So we did not create the 55 states in Africa. Yeah. The partitioning of Africa was done without the participation and consent of Africans. and those who did so want it to remain that way.
But we can't just leave it to them and say, okay, because you did it, then we're going to stay that way. I mean, at some point, a child grows to be an adult, gets married, and the father or mother don't have as much control as they had at some point. So with all the countries in Africa being as independent for as long as they have been, it's about time they began to do something about it. It's a conversation that I think we'll have another time. Prof, thank you so much for your time this morning. Richard Wokocha is a professor of public law at the River State University. Once again, thank you so much for your time and perspectives.
Thank you for having me.
Sir. Now, when we return, it's time for some celebration. You'll find out.
Well, today is December the 10th, as Ayo did remind us, but what he didn't add is that today is International Human Rights Day. And on this International Human Rights Day, we are also celebrating with Enough is Enough, a civil society organization whose work we've followed for many years, especially here on Sunrise Daily. 15 years of their own existence, and their Executive Director Yemi Adamolekun joins us now for a conversation. It's so good to see you this morning. I had thought that you'd be wearing something a little different, but so characteristically you, wearing your T-shirt. I know that T-shirt has Office of the Citizen because I also have it as well. It has been quite a journey, you know, trying to get Nigerians, especially young Nigerians, to be aware of their rights, to be able to make use of their voice. So I want to ask you, how would you say that there is a difference between now and 15 years ago when your organization started?
Certainly. Good morning again, and thanks for having me. Yes, certainly. I think there's a lot more awareness. I think what social media in and of itself has done in democratizing information, both creators and access. We talk about in 2010 when Enough is Enough started. That was around, it was 2011 elections that you then had government officials start opening social media accounts. And they were then taken aback because unlike TV, as you and I are talking, no matter what we say, whoever disagrees with us, we can't hear them. Radio, unless it's a call-in program, whatever they say, you can't comment. For social media, you get response instantly. And government officials were very taken aback. And that's where the phrase children of anger, very rude. So I think in terms of over the last 15 years, a lot more awareness, a lot more ownership. You can create, I mean, there are people who make money now creating memes about who is sleeping in the National Assembly, what governor is working or not working, as the case may be. So that level of awareness has increased, certainly. But I think that hasn't translated in terms of action. So we complain a lot and we find humor to deal with things that we don't like. But the gap between identifying what you don't like and wanting to do something about it, it hasn't shrinked as much as I would have liked.
That this awareness will translate into action. As a matter of fact, my next question to you was going to say, in what ways would you say that that awareness has moved the needle? Well, it would seem that you've preempted that to, you know, to say that it would seem that we tend to want to catch crews, as they would say, if it's something that we see that we can't do much about. But we have seen quite a number of campaigns come up on social media, move from online to real life, so to speak.
Yeah.
The question there will be, what real difference has that made for citizens?
I think, to your point, it's there. I think maybe my own is the context in terms of volume. I would have expected that the action would be proportional in this. Maybe not directly proportional, but at least more aligned with the awareness and the interest. But I think there's some fundamental things that make that difficult, that even for me, I'm getting sort of more clarity as the years go by. So number one, I would say, is even just education. There's nothing really in Nigeria's structured education. So yes, we teach civics, but it's a very basic type level civics. We talk about history being removed, not really teaching it in our curriculum. But there's nothing really in Nigeria's curriculum that teaches citizens that they have power, that they have agency, that they have voice. So for a lot of Nigerians, democracy equals elections. But the very heart of democracy is the fact that you have voice to be involved in governance. You have voice to hold your elected officials accountable. And that part of it is what we haven't done well. And as EIE Nigeria, as you said, that's the whole idea of the office of the citizen, that you have power. But if you think about it, I'm a Yoruba girl. Having a conversation with an older Yoruba man who might have misappropriated money you journalists can get away with it perhaps. But as citizens, it gets a bit tricky because you are then called rude or whatever word they want to use. And then religion is also another thing that Nigerians hide under a lot. We expect God to magically solve all our problems. And it's in our language. God did, it is well. God is in control. So those types of things sort of subconsciously disempower. And it's in understanding that and trying to overcome that we have to consistently teach and then tell the stories of success. If you pick up any paper or watch most news programs, it's usually the senator that's sleeping, the senator that has stolen money, the governor that is not doing anything. It's more the negative that gets amplified. And we don't do as much with, as you rightly said, there's citizens who have gone offline. We have success stories from our radio program where people get information, then engage their senator. Just recently in Nasarawa, in total local government, an IDP camp got a borehole because they engaged the local government chairman and they got a result. But those types of stories, both media and organizations like ours need to tell more so citizens can connect the dots that these things do happen. And then lastly, I would say also government. Anybody that's pushing government to do better is usually taken as an enemy. So the fear is also real for some people. Popular phrase, I beg, I cannot come and die for Nigeria. Because government makes it look as if the fact that you want the country to work better is you must be gagged. So you have people, there's a young man who is in jail in Anambra now. He's been granted bail since May of last year, but he's still being held because of what he uncovered around sale of body parts in Anambra. And so we're now trying to put pressure and highlight his case so the boy can go home for Christmas. He's been granted bail by a court. So citizens are saying that even if I'm doing the right thing, even if the court finds for me, a governor can decide that I am not going to go out. And it's at all levels, local government, state, federal. And so that's real as well. And then recently we had NSAS, obviously. And the trauma of that is very real for a lot of young people who literally watched their government open fire and shoot citizens. So you have to do the work to let citizens know that it's abnormal, or you can't let that then define how you engage government because it's not right. So you can't then shy away because you then leave space for impunity at a very high level.
Well, before I let my colleague Ayo come into the conversation, because I know that he most likely will close it from there, I'm going to ask you this one personal question, as I know that it's been quite a journey for you. 15 years of your life has gone into this. It had meant that you have had to put aside everything else. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this on TV, but I'm going to take a risk. You turned 5 decades at the start of this year. So I'm trying to imagine a decade and a half of your life dedicated to building this and creating awareness for Nigeria. It's almost like as if you lived a sacrificial life, more or less, saying, I'm not going to pursue wealth. This is my life's calling, and this is all that I'm going to do. When you think about it, has it been worth it? Or do you think that, you could have had another type of life like everyone else?
I certainly could have had another type of life. Certainly could have lived somewhere else, could have worked somewhere, could have a whole lot more money, could have traveled a lot more, and I love to travel. But it has indeed been a privilege. EIE in 15 years, or 14 years that it's been a formal organization. And I would say it's been a privilege for me to have been a part of their lives, especially the feedback that I get on what's been in working at EIE and working with me and what they've learned and how it has impacted their lives. And also seeing EIE's footprints. We have a book called Footprints, Past, Present, Future. And what we've done, as I've reflected over 15 years, it's, I won't call it a waste at all.
Well, congratulations as I hand you over to my colleague, Ayo.
Thank you.
I hope you can hear me.
Now I can, clearly.
Okay, good. So the one narrative that's been on, that was something that you said earlier about, you know, education and all of that, is how do we get the people involved? It's interesting, madam, that the people who are denying other humans their rights are humans. And one way or the other, they themselves get denied their rights. So how do we bridge, you know, each other's rights? Because it seems that that narrative is lost. Once I'm in a particular, you know, sphere of influence, I am in charge of your human rights. The soldier, a policeman, even a civilian, having a measure of authority, tend to say, okay, I'm going to use this to full advantage. So how do we change that narrative so your job can be easier and maybe you can travel more?
It's really, honestly, I believe education. At the heart of it, we must help people connect the dots. Connect the dots between between governance, politics, and the quality of life. Now, you're quite right. When you're in a position of power, there's this subconscious thing that it won't happen to me, that I'm above that. And then there's also what it does in terms of what you try to acquire to then shield yourself when you leave public office, and why people don't want to leave public office. So you have Ouattara in Ivory Coast, who changed the constitution till he's there for 4 terms. And then what's interesting is notice how not all, but West African presidents go there to celebrate his 4th term. What you're subconsciously saying is that it's acceptable behavior. That if I also in my country can change my constitution to stay on ad infinitum, I would do that. So we must then not only educate citizens, but in educating them, communicate to those who are in office that there are consequences for this. Rotimi Amechi famously said that when he was governor, that maybe when people start throwing stones at us, then we will behave differently. Because he says that when they show up at places, everybody claps. So in our actions, we're reinforcing their bad behavior or saying it's acceptable behavior. So at the heart of it really is just education. But it's the key to your point, I would say, is how do we educate? How do we make the information sticky? How do we make it accessible to people so they can really connect the dots? And that includes language. A lot of things are done in English, the major languages. So how do we take it down so it's in language that people understand? In context, maybe in proverbs or in historical narratives that helps them understand ultimately that you have power and all these people are public servants for a reason.
Just one last question. Is there a place for culture in this conversation? You talked about the place of the English language and all of that. But rather than, you know, struggle to translate, you know, the campaign, you know, of human rights into local languages, are there existing cultural practices or activities that can enhance or amplify human rights? In your culture, for instance, the head of the community, the traditional ruler, is called someone that cannot be questioned. Now, in a way, that is like, shush your human rights. So how do we communicate, you know, this through existing cultural practices and activities?
And it's a brilliant question. To my first question, when I answered her around how, as a Yoruba girl, asking question of an older Yoruba gentleman that might have misappropriated money will be considered rude. That is the cultural part. And then adding that to what you are saying, even language. So when you're saying translation, so government is Ijoba, a king's seat in a sense. And then if you now say that a king cannot be questioned, within that context, democracy doesn't quite apply. So you have to use what is known. You go from what is known to what is unknown. Meet people where they are, and then use what is there to explain where you are trying to take them and how it's different from what they know. And so you're absolutely right. It has to be, because you have to get people to understand what it is that the journey that you're taking them. I mean, as they say that even monarchs, there are processes to depose a monarch. So it's not to say a monarch is there forever. If communities decide that this monarch is anti
that happened recently. I think that happened recently in the southwestern state. They practically walked the traditional ruler out of town. Well, maybe as
but to
you
your
have
point,
also
you start
reminded
with
us.
that
Absolutely.
make the point, but not, you can't ignore it. You go from what people understand, get them to where you want them to go.
Well, I'm hoping that we'll be able to percolate this all across our various communities, because there are some people who believe that that is one of the things that happen in certain quarters, particularly, which also in a sense fosters insecurity, because once people believe that they don't have a right, then they are docile. But once they know their right, they stand up for it. We congratulate you. 15 years of EIE, not a joke. Thank you for all of your sacrifices. And thank you very much for what you do for humanity. Yemi Adaramalekun, Executive Director, Enough is Enough. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay. Now, still in the development space, 16 days of activism. Markwe.
Indeed, Ayo, it's all very interesting that 16 days of activism comes to an end on International Human Rights Day, because women's rights are human rights. And this morning, to finally help us conclude that conversation, wrap up the day, but not conclude the conversation, because the conversation is ongoing. We have here in our studios today Nabila Agwele, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Malala Fund. Thank you so much for joining us. I see you resplendent in your orange.
Thank you for
I kind of feel bad that on the last day when I should have remembered that, I'm not wearing orange, but trust me, I'm orange with you in spirit.
Amazing.
It's been quite a journey this last 16 days, and it's very interesting the angle that, you know, the general theme has been uniting to end digital violence against women and girls. For someone like you who has championed the fact that girls should get educated, I think we continue to make that case to the fact that we have the fact that both of us are even having this conversation, the fact that we're just done interviewing Yemi Adamolekun, who has, you know, championed the cause of enough is enough over the years. I think it more than makes the case that, you know, the education of girl children is non-negotiable. It's something that should be a fundamental human right. But what particular lessons will you be taking away from this 16 days of activism, especially as it relates to the work that the Malala Fund does?
Thank you so much. I mean, this is such a great question, and thanks for having us. So as you know, the 16 days is a moment that we mark every year to take stock of where things are, to deepen engagement in the area, and to really cultivate increased collective action on this issue, where across the world and here at home, we still have a lot of work to do. Each year there's a theme. This year's theme is, of course, focused on digital violence, which is incredibly important. And for us, though, at Malala Fund, as with many other stakeholders, we use these 16 days to further emphasize the link between our particular mandate or focus area and our ultimate goal, which is to end gender-based violence against women and girls. For us, our focus is on educating the adolescent girl. We focus on access and completion for junior secondary all the way to senior secondary, recognizing that educating a girl is a human right, but also there's a critical catalytic impact in ensuring that this particular age group is able to stay in school and complete school, both for them, their own human right, their ability to be economically empowered, their ability to contribute to the broader economy, and also for us as Nigerians. I mean, there's countless data that demonstrates the economic benefit and the GDP benefit, the labor benefit of ensuring that we educate girls, and particularly adolescent girls. These 16 days, we're really emphasizing the link between child and early marriage and education, and also gender-based violence. So Nigeria, for those who don't know, represents the largest number of girls who are married under the age of 18 in all of West and Central Africa, an estimated 23 to 25%, depending on whose figures you're looking at, and that represents over 1/3 of the whole for the region, which means that it's an area that while we're making progress, we have a lot of work to do. And child marriage not only prevents girls from completing school due to the complexities and the stigma attached and the challenges around sort of taking on that role so early, it also is an exacerbator of gender-based violence and globally is recognized as a form of GBV. So this is an area that we really need to work at, and keeping a girl in school, ensuring that she's able to complete her education, is a key solution to delaying and ultimately ending marriage. We also recognize that we have quite a number of girls who fall into that category already. The figure is at over 30% nationally, and in some regions that jumps to 50% across the Northeast and the Northwest, with some states having numbers above 70%. So we're not talking insignificant numbers here. So for us, this is an important area to push for policy engagement and solutions, and also to ensure that those girls who are already married, are already mothers, have legitimate pathways to continue their education formally.
You know, thinking about this, I was just thinking about how apt it is that we're speaking to you at the Malala Fund, because the founder of the Malala Fund, you know, actually suffered gender-based violence as a result of her wanting to go to school as a girl, and that's one of the reasons why she was targeted, you know, shot at. And even though some people will say it's a rare form of violence, a rare reason why girls are targeted, maybe not so rare in some parts, because in some parts of Nigeria today, I imagine that some girls, that might be their fate, you know, facing violence only and simply because they choose to get an education. If you have parents or you have, you know, family members who are resistant to the idea, it could become violent. But I'm wondering, you know, given the theme that has been chosen this year, do you think it really resonates with the population that you serve? That is young girls, and most times rural women, rural girls, so to speak, rural adolescent girls. Do you see any linkages, because we're looking at digital violence?
Oh, that's such a great question. So when we talk about digital violence, and I think what you've put on the table is this question of access, right? Who is the target population here? Obviously, young people are on the internet across Nigeria, so this is an incredibly relevant conversation for girls, particularly in urban areas, but I think also in rural areas where there is access. But, you know, irrespective of whether the girls that we serve in rural areas are directly impacted by the particular theme of this year, it's an important area to reflect on. What I know from the discourse is that a lot of young people, young women, are targeted. There is deep fake content on the internet. There's a lot of lack of awareness around sort of issues on the internet. And really what the theme is saying is that we need to pay attention to this. We need to recognize the evolving digital landscape in which we live. And as we think about deepening digital access, frameworks, etc., we must factor in the extent to which these platforms can be abused to harm children and young people. I would say, though, you know, for rural, many young women and young families in rural areas, digital access is a far, far dream. Many of these young girls are really just trying to fundamentally be able to get into a school to complete their education. They belong to communities that are dealing with significant economic challenges. I mean, the current cost of living crisis is known to many, and these challenges are exacerbated, particularly in these rural areas where you see increased out-of-school numbers. So even as we look to address digital issues, we cannot forget our reality, which is that a large majority have significant barriers to education. For us, we focus on two priority areas over the next 5 years, one of which I've already discussed, which is around ensuring and protecting the right to education for girls who are impacted by child marriage and adolescent pregnancy. We're also doing quite a bit of work around education spending, right? So pushing for increased spending, pushing for gender-responsive education sector planning and spending, and within that, policymakers can then be better called on to address the unique challenges of each set of communities, whether they're in urban areas or rural.
Well, I have a very strong he for she on this program. My colleague Ayo is ready to join the conversation. Over to you now.
Yes, I'm he for she, I promise you. Madam, quickly, perhaps it's a kind of follow-up on your question, Mark, actually. So, Madam, perhaps there is some cultural inflection on this. Mark referenced the Malala herself. And you know the support the parents, you know, the father in particular, gave her, what he initiated and also supported, you know, his own child to foster, which became her own campaign as well. Also, so is there a role for culture there? Because it takes a village to raise a child. That's what we hear and we say. And we also know that in Nigeria, some states have announced strict enforcement or punitive legislation for parents who don't allow their children to go to school. Abia State has it, Nasarawa State has it, Gombe State has it, River State has it, and a few others like that. So these two issues, do you see them strong enough to ensure compelling parents to let their children go to school? It's a crime in these states for a parent not to allow the child, or for a child not to go to school for one reason or the other.
Wow, there's so much to unpack in this question. I'll start where you started, which is speaking about Malala Yousafzai, our co-founder, and her father, Ziauddin Yousafzai, a proud, he for she, a proud champion for girls' education across the world. We absolutely believe that there is a role for communities, for families, for community leaders, and other stakeholders to play in this work. And in fact, it very much informs the ethos of the way we do our work at Malala Fund. We do not do any direct service delivery as an international organization. We put money directly in the hands of local organizations, civil society actors, nonprofits, movements, social enterprises who are working in states, in communities, and are able to sustain those relationships and understand the local context. We also are doing increased work around male allyship, and this is work to more meaningfully engage men and boys as allies rather than looking at them in a sort of one-dimensional way as gatekeepers, which is how they've typically been characterized. So through this work, Ziauddin, Malala's dad, was actually in Nigeria twice this year. In June, we paid a visit to the Sultan of Sokoto, a significant traditional ruler in the north and also a recognized national and global champion for girls' education. We also paid visits to other traditional rulers as well. And so for us, leveraging Ziauddin's platform and voice to engage community stakeholders, both those with national presence as well as local community presence, is a core part of our work and something that we'll continue to do. To your question around legislation around families and parents, I think strong policies that lead to ensuring that girls and children in general can go to school are important. However, we also have to contextualize our policy interventions and even our interventions within the economic realities faced by families. So in addition to existing punitive measures that you've described, what would also be great to see, and I'm sure many states are already doing, is really recognizing the economic challenges that are underpinning some of the social norms we see in communities. So for example, when a family makes a decision to not send a girl to school because they don't believe that is a strong economic investment, these are norms that need to be corrected. And also, we need to also recognize what are the challenges. Are they dealing with hidden school fees that are passed on to families and communities that then prevent basic education from actually being free? Are the schools within close reach? When their children go to school, are they receiving quality education? These are some of the complexity of factors that are also impacting the extent to which families and communities are sending their children to school, and especially their girls. And so therefore, policy interventions and any interventions need to really be holistic and take into account the extent to which economic realities also exacerbate and interplay with social norms.
So as we close this 16 days of activism, this year, 16 days of activism, what lessons do you want us to take away and continue with as we look forward to the next 16 days of activism in 2026?
So I think the lessons, sadly, continue to be the same. There's so much to do in this area. And as you see, the theme changes year on year, which means that this is a cross-sectoral issue. This is not the sole mandate of the Ministries of Women Affairs. This is not a solely gender approach. This work is about improving lives of women and girls, but also broader citizens. I think another lesson is there is no rocket science here. We cannot take any shortcuts. What we need are strong, sound policies, frameworks that are costed. Whatever we commit to doing needs to be backed with strong budget line items. It also needs to be informed by the needs and the realities of the girls and women and communities we hope to serve. I think still a lot of work is done without really taking into account the needs, the circumstances, and the concerns of those we serve. And also accountability is key. And it takes a village. This is a collective action moment where all stakeholders need to join together and do their part.
I think it's a fine place to live it. Collective action. We are all stakeholders. Thank you so much for coming on Sunrise Today this morning. Nabila Aguele, it's good to see you on our program. She's the Chief Executive Officer of Malala Fund. Thank you once more. Well, that's how we'll wrap up today's segment, or today's edition of Sunrise Today. Thank you so much for being a part of the program. I'm Maupe Ogunyusuf.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. You have a productive day.